Welcome back to Age of Scale. Sometimes in this hobby we start a project with high hopes only to hit a wall. That's exactly what happened with this 18th century frigate, the USS Constitution. Well, you've probably noticed we're kind of jumping into this project midstream. Honestly, originally I wasn't going to film this build at all. I got into it and I was having so many problems with my understanding of the instructions, very hard to understand. The materials themselves were a little fragile in places I wasn't used to. So basically I've had to cobble together some repairs and change whole methods of how things are going to be done. So we're going to make it, I decided finally that we should go ahead and try and finish this thing. You can learn a lot from some of these things that I think probably this model might have been a little over my head, but after building 6 or 7 of these ships, this is the one that I've had the most problems with. So I'm going to forge ahead and show you as we go how I come to solve some problems, and maybe it'll be helpful to you too. So I started this a little over a year ago and got to a certain point and just stopped, and it's been sitting on my workbench staring at me all this time. So in today's episode I decided I'll walk you through the progress made so far, the hurdles this kit threw my way, and why I decided, flaws and all, this ship deserves to be finished. Okay, my first hint of possible problems when I was opening it all up came to the booklet of instructions here. Shows a very nice picture of the Constitution, the actual ship. So far, so good. Open it up, you get the usual instructions, admonitions, and whatnot. But then, we started to get into it. This is probably not the best way to film this, but they have lots of pictures of the ship itself, but when they get into the instructions on how to put the kit together, they rely on these pencil sketches, and the printed instructions use a lot of nomenclature and things that hard for me to understand. I had to look up about every other word. It dawned on me that they're describing how a shipyard would look at this and build this vessel, which is unique, but I think it's a little more than I can handle. So basically I'm relying on my experiences building these other 6 or 7 vessels that I've done. There are minimal amount of laser etch parts, and mostly you have to figure out what size strips of wood they want to use. And the other attraction was it has a copper bottom eventually when I get to that point, which I was kind of anxious to try one. So the booklet can be a little hard to understand. Then they give us 6 rather large sheets of 1-to-1, again with a lot of pencil drawings of details, which for me was very hard to orient what they were doing or talking about. planking. It seems like there's going to be two sizes of planks here, unless it's the way the drawing is distorted. And ship's details, once we start getting into the details on the deck and the rigging, is going to be relying very heavily on past experience that I've had. So we'll all get into this together and see how it all comes out. Okay, the first thing was they gave us blocks of wood. This one has been cut, but it was just a big square block of wood. And from that, we were supposed to carve pieces for the stern. Here's one on that side, plate here, which was very daunting for a non-sculptor type person. And on the bow, same thing with fillers for the bow here. Were cut out of blocks of wood with not much help on instructions on how you should go about doing it. I had some work experience to help me with that, but then laying the keel and placing the ribs in was fairly standard, but this one had some problems in that the tops of these ribs were extremely thin and broke very easily, so I had to basically rebuild a few of them, and one or two that I knew were going to be hidden that ultimately just crumbled right up. They're super thin and just broke very easily. Another one here. So that was my problem with that. And then the other, again with those sketches and everything, I couldn't understand how they wanted the deck framing done up in here. They didn't provide bases for your deck here. It was just left ribs, and I was assuming they meant you to place your deck panels or deck strips right over the ribs. Excuse me. Which is not something I wanted to do, because I've developed, with some help of other builders, this method of placing the deck, which we're going to get into here, show you a little step by step. But this process required a base in order to lay these deck pieces in with the detail we wanted. So these things I had to make myself out of some balsa wood that I had around. And that was a challenge. So that's where we are. Our next episode we'll get into that deck laying procedure with the thread and the strips. These are just some pictures of the carving work that had to be done on the stern and the bow. And one last shot here of where the model ended up sitting for a little over a year after my frustration level got too high. So we're going to dive in.